All right, let's fill it up again. It's Monday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin tonight with some news from the Trump administration where the president says that the U.S. attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, will stay focused on the investigation into Jerome Powell and that she will take it end to end. Also at the Grammys, wannabe comedian Trevor commented that President Trump spent time on Epstein's island. In turn, President Trump is threatening to sue the failing Noah for this. Mess around, Trevor? You're going to find out. And President Trump says body cams on ICE officers was the idea of DHS Secretary Christina Bobb, saying body cams tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening. We saw that in the Renee Good shooting. But first, you're either for or against election integrity, and if you're not for it, then you hate America. Let's do this. Sure, the left is breaking into courthouses, smashing windows, and assaulting ICE agents. They did that this weekend, but no one's talking about why they are doing it anymore, which is obviously their hope. That was their goal. Their hope is that we're all focused on the violence and not the fact that they're doing it to cover up the fact that ICE is deporting their newfound voter base. That's what this is about. That's why it is so well funded and so well organized. Since the House today committed to not send the funding bill back to the Senate without the SAVE Act, a bill that would obviously put us on path to securing our elections. Not completely, but it's the right path. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that a gerbil could hack our election processes. What we are currently doing is absolutely insane, unaccountable, and there's widespread fraud. There just is, with 2020 becoming increasingly more proof of that. The House passed in April the SAVE Act, and the Senate just didn't even take it up. It's a lighter version, but just like national reciprocity, that's still sitting in the Senate, too. Folks, look, I've been to like 80 countries, most of which I don't like. I've watched third world countries with like paper ballots, with blue ink on your finger, conduct statistically 100% accurate elections, and have the results that night. And somehow the most technologically advanced country in the world that allegedly is going back to the moon on Saturday can't. And I don't believe that. But in typical D.C. fashion, the House, They passed this SAVE Act. They passed it in April, okay? Better than nothing, but this is the first time they've had any meaningful reform to our voting system since 1993. But all it did was require proof of citizenship when you register to vote, which is already a law. But the reason we need to reinforce this is because most of the Democrat Party either doesn't know this or refuses to believe it.
Does the organization you're here representing believe that people should have to be United States citizens in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
I don't know.
Does Lucha believe that non-citizens should be able to vote in Arizona just because they pay taxes?
I don't feel comfortable making a definitive statement.
Is it the position of the ACLU that people should have to be U.S. citizens in order to vote in Arizona's elections?
It is the ACLU's position that voting should be fair and accessible and to everyone who is eligible.
That would be a U.S. citizen view.
And what's scary is Christina Bobb, who's going to join us in just a sec, is still 5 years later indicted in Arizona for simply asking a question about the integrity of that election that they were just doing a hearing on. Questions that major parties who help get Democrats elected can't even say that non-citizens shouldn't vote. And using that ambiguity for cover, many states like Minnesota signed into law that everyone got a driver's license.
It's done.
Packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
Sounds great. Currently 25 states, though, also automatically registered you to vote when you get that driver's license. So you, by law, can get a driver's license without proof of citizenship, but then you're automatically registered to vote when you get that license. And then placed on voter rolls, so when you show up to the polls, most of these states don't even have voter ID anyway.
So if someone comes in, they register, they have the driver's license, but they have an incorrect social or no social or whatever. So then they become incomplete. But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete. If they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
You see why libs are also trying to ban ICE at polling stations.
One of the things that I think we need to make sure that is included in any kind of ICE reform is we don't want these roving patrols of ICE agents suddenly showing up at polling stations during primaries or general elections.
They're saying it out loud. ICE at polling places shouldn't be a problem because illegals shouldn't be voting in our elections. Democrats have completely just end-run accountability, though, in our elections. See, the original SAVE Act would have at least prevented any new illegals from registering to vote. But what about the 20 million or so that already came here, that many of which are already on voter rolls? All the blue states that are losing U.S. citizen population, but are weirdly and simultaneously gaining numbers on the Democrat voter rolls. How is that? Well, look, California, 2016 had 19.4 million voters on their rolls with a 39 million person population. Yet in 2024, 8 years later, they had the same population, but 22.6 million on their voting rolls, which is interesting because in 2016, there were an estimated over 2 million illegals there. Now, in the latest data, there's almost 3 million illegals there, meaning there should have been less, almost 1 million less voters, but yet they increased their voter rolls by 3.2 million. New York, similar ratios. Illinois, Hawaii, Vermont, New Mexico, all losing population, but increasing their voter registrants. And part of this is because illegals are getting into auto-registered mode when they get their DMV certificates. But the other part is that blue states in particular do not clean their voter rolls. Now, the SAVE Act, the new SAVE Act specifically, would require states to do that. Voter rolls that in some cases are having ballots sent automatically to people. Some that are systematically requested, that can be mailed back and even harvested in some states. Some of that's totally legal, by the way. Oregon was sued, forced to clean up their voter rolls, and just last week began removing 800,000 voters from their rolls, after the election, of course, in a state that Kamala only won by 321,000. You see how I might be a little concerned about this? I mean, and also, who went to jail? Oh, that's right, nobody. According to their own state law, 247.563, the Secretary of State is responsible for keeping clean voter rolls. Clearly, they didn't do that. Mark Meadows himself, one of the people who was indicted for saying this might happen in Georgia, this might have happened in Georgia. He himself was on 3 states' voter rolls simultaneously because he moved 3 times. He notified everybody when he changed his license and his address, and he was still on the voter rolls. They didn't take him off. More than a dozen states have this problem, partly because of illegals on their rolls from automatic registration, and partially because they don't clean their rolls. Even dead people sometimes gets ballots just like sent out to them. So the bill the House passed in April says that states must remove non-citizens from their voter rolls. But the Trump administration already had to sue 20 states to get their voter rolls. Oregon is the only one that's ordered to comply at this time. So how would we even verify they were actually complying with? I mean, I know Democrats would never break the law, right? It's astonishing to me that how blatant these libs are about this. But people like Chip Roy, by the way, who recently fell out of favor with MAGA. If this gets passed, though, every Republican should be trying to help keep him in Congress. And Mike Lee also in the Senate is working on this. They passed the updated version, which is the Save America Act, because the original Save Act did not require actual voter ID when voting. However, the one thing that must be addressed is mail-in voting. I believe this is how Biden mythically captured 15 million more votes than any Democrat candidate before him, while campaigning from his basement with those little white circles around a single chair. The new SAVE Act from this weekend says, yeah, you gotta have an eligible ID to get a mail-in ballot now. Great. But what is this about? Like, what about this? What do you do when there's 315,000 votes that no one knows where they came from in a state that Trump lost by 11,000 votes, as the Federalists noted and election workers have now admitted? And when I went to bed Tuesday night in 2020, election night, Trump was up by 8% in Georgia with 83% reporting. 16% was 64% reporting in Pennsylvania, up almost 11% in Michigan with 60% reporting. And he was up by 5 points in Wisconsin with 82% reporting. And then when I wake up the next morning, Biden swept all of them, which is a statistical improbability. To win all those states, Biden would have had to get 90% of the remaining vote. Or when you double count ballots, as State Senator Greg Dozal from Georgia noted.
Let's talk about the recount that happened. 3,930 double scan ballots in Fulton County alone.
I know you're probably thinking like, wow, why didn't someone do something about this at the time? Well, I'm glad you asked about that. There were 60 election cases brought by Republicans about 2020, and they were all thrown out. Why? Well, not on the merits or the evidence of the case, but standing. See, before the election, the judges all said, no, you can't bring this case until it's certified. Then once it was certified, judges were like, oh, well, it's too late to do it. It's already been certified. States courts said it was federal responsibility. Federal courts said it was states' responsibility because no judge wanted to be in a position to have to overturn an election if the evidence presented itself. And now that a local magistrate, keep in mind, the person who ordered the seizure of the ballots in Georgia is a non-Trump appointed person. He approved a search warrant to go seize 2020 election materials in Georgia because he saw enough evidence for probable cause. Where was the Secretary of State Raffensperger when Trump called him? Like, that guy should be in jail if it turns out Trump was right. But guess what? We won't ever find out how bad it was. Why? Well, because Georgia was the only state that had a court order to preserve those ballots from 2020. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, no judge ever ordered that. So those ballots might be gone. Didn't break the law doing it. The new or old SAVE Act doesn't address any of those things. And that's what I'm worried about. Look, you either want voter integrity or not. There's no half measures here. And Republicans, if you do one thing, I don't care if you take the rest of the year off. Actually, we're probably better off if you don't do anything other than this. Start governing like you're the actual majority, please, and get this done. Christina Bobb, author of Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare, currently under indictment in Arizona for simply asking a question in a state that she didn't go to. This is nuts.
Yeah, no, you summarized it very well, and I so appreciate you doing this because when I was doing this back in 2020, I got arrested for it. So I appreciate the fact that you're still talking about it and still beating this drum because this is the single most important issue in our nation. I know we're all concerned about the corruption in politics and in our leadership and the Epstein files and are the rich and powerful committing crimes. The only way we can clean them out and hold them accountable is through free and fair elections to put people in office to do that. And we can't do that when our elections are hijacked. So this is the single most important issue.
Yeah, like I said, go home, pass this and then go home for the rest of their term. I don't even care. Yes. I love that you have your mugshot right behind you, by the way, which is hilarious. All right, Democrats are obviously losing their mind at Republicans trying to do this, but Democrat Chuck Schumer released a statement today, and I almost spit my coffee out laughing. He said the SAVE Act would impose Jim Crow-style restrictions on voting. It will be dead on arrival in the Senate. I'm sorry, you're in the minority, guy.
Yeah, I mean, they're counting constituents being stupid and not doing their own research. There's nothing in the SAVE Act. Quite honestly, the SAVE Act is largely redundant because what it's doing is largely already in law. You already are supposed to be a United States citizen to vote. It just kind of reestablishes that and kind of makes it a little bit more streamlined and clearer across the entire board. But there's nothing Jim Crow about this. You have to be a citizen. I do think they need to get rid of paper ballots, although the SAVE Act doesn't necessarily go as far as I would like it to on that. But why they're up in arms about this, a couple things. One, there's no reason for them to do it other than to try to muddy the water and cause dissension. But then two, shame on Republicans. They've had an entire year to pass this, or
and
if not this, something, something similar. You don't like it, fine. Make it something else. But secure your elections, because if you don't, you are going to lose your seat. And they all seem to want to be playing Pollyanna. So, you know, it's on them. It's on Republicans.
Well, and like the writing's on the wall too. Like Texas just had a massive, like a deep red district flip blue. And everyone's like, I don't know why that happened. It's like, because you're not doing the things that you said you were going to do. And nobody likes you anymore, Republicans, including me
Republicans,
right now. I'm a Republican. I'm just so angry at them.
Yeah, no, it's true. Republicans have lost their base, and they're not cleaning their voter rolls. They want to pretend like, oh, I'm not a crazy conspiracy theorist. I don't believe there's problems with our elections. Whether you believe the 2020 election was stolen or not shouldn't matter on the fact that you can objectively look at the way we conduct elections in this nation and go, I think we can do better. So it's arrogant.
Yeah, if Iraq can be more accountable than us, then we should figure it out here. I mean, okay. The other thing I'm worried about is these straw donations and these what they call Smurf donations is the funding of our elections, because it comes from all kinds of wazoo places. Now, Susan Collins is at the center of this one in particular. Now, according to the FEC, this one person in North Carolina, 70-something years old, Social Security, doesn't have a ton of money, donated to Susan Collins 254 times with a total of $5,395. Like, I don't know anybody in the world who sits at home and clicks 254 times to donate $5.
Yeah, it's obviously an algorithm. It's an algorithm that the organization appears to be using for the purpose of, quite honestly, illegal election contributions or campaign finance violations. That's what it looks like. Obviously, there needs to be a full investigation, which we've heard rumblings of that, whether it's happening or not, I don't know. But the way you turn it off is all of this crazy USAID, foreign aid stuff that's getting routed through some foreign country back into blue campaigns. Shut it off. Have clean, fair elections, and the problem will resolve itself when these people can't use government money for political purposes. But until Republicans get tough, what's going to happen? They're not doing anything.
Tough. Right. Don't hold your breath, Christina. Christina Bobb, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, more potential fraud uncovered in, you guessed it, California. Dr. Oz blowing the lid off, say, home health care scheme. We got that story later in the show. But first, the internet had a weekend to crowdsource the 3.5 million pages of Epstein docs released by the DOJ. There's some pretty vile stuff in there, but we have some interesting details you want to hear next.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmidt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
Whoa, 90% off? I have to purchase now. My phone!
That was a scam link.
Try this one. We installed PCmatic.
PCmatic blocks ransomware before threats can strike.
It's 100% made in America security.
Trusted by homes, businesses, governments, and now you. Stop guessing.
Start blocking.
Get PCmatic.
Hi, I'm Gary Player. I'm a professional golfer. I've won 165 pro tournaments, but what means more to me than all of this is my ability to give back and do good.
You're an incredible human being. But you joined the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. You see the work we're doing.
I mean, what you do is fantastic. Tunnel to Towers is working every day to support America's greatest heroes. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sono Bello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sono Bello.
I wanted the results of a tummy tuck, but not the downtime.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call or go to sonobello.com right now.
So the internet has had time to crowdsource the 3.5 million documents that the DOJ finally released from the Epstein files on Friday.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the act.
Gee, thanks, Todd. You want a medal for following the law a month and a half late? I mean, like, can I pay my taxes a month and a half late this year? Probably not, but here you are. The theories that were largely dismissed, though, for decades, I mean, we can't personally at Newsmax or me corroborate them, but these files certainly seem to, at least a lot of them, from torturing and raping young children, things that Princess Diana and many of the victims like Virginia Guffrey alleged for years and advocated against. Implications of Israel, Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, Bill Barr for allegedly being present when a girl was raped, Bill Gates, he was allegedly doing pandemic planning simulations with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017, George Clooney, 2014. Clooney was at the Copenhagen where Epstein appears to visit him there and saying, now I know Copenhagen has interesting girls. Jane Fonda, apparently, the new best friend, Robert De Niro, Peggy Siegel, they had 100% Jew night. That's a quote. Media elite, and once the money is paid, according to the files. Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn CEO, who's been funding Democrats and leftist organizations for years, was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey invited him to the island and to the New Mexico ranch to, quote, play. The governor of Maine, Janet Mills, accused of child abuse cover-up and cocaine trafficking in these documents. Even the TMZ founder was mentioned in there, who's been awful silent, by the way, on this stuff. Usually they're sensationalized. Harvey Levin, who runs TMZ, is a, quote, good friend, someone who wrote to Epstein. Again, there's no proof, I don't have any proof, that any of these people ever committed a crime. I have to say that. But this is what the documents say. But notice how everyone mentioned is like, or almost everybody mentioned in the 3.5 million documents, is like some sort of Trump derangement syndrome person. All of this and so much more to be released. All Todd Blanche comes out and says this.
A lot of correspondence, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of photographs, there's a lot of horrible photographs that appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or people around him, but that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody.
Why not? Newsmax legal analyst Jay Town and Luke Ball, CEO of Compass Strategies. All right, let's go legal angle on this, Jay. Why can't they open an investigation? Is that because there's a bunch of silent plea deals?
Well, I don't think it's because there's a bunch of silent plea deals, but perhaps you're referencing Ghislaine Maxwell's contention that there are secret settlements with the victims. And those settlements, no doubt, have non-disclosure agreements. And what that takes away from any, and as a career prosecutor, when you don't have a victim of a crime like the ones that we're talking about here with Epstein. It's very serious, but you need the actual victim to come and say what happened to her and by whom. If they refuse to do so, that means that a child rapist is walking free. And that is, I believe, because I know you and you're a good man, right? And we have children. I have a daughter. You know, look, this is not what anybody would want to happen. But you still have to, as a Department of Justice, to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is what is making it so frustrating for folks like us, but also I think people like Todd Blanche and Pam and the DOJ, because they just don't have the evidence for another prosecution at this moment.
I don't think Pam and the DOJ really wanted this out because they're a month and a half late. I mean, that's just my opinion there. But, you know, from the influencer side, I mean, you know, they send all these people to the White House, Luke. They give them binders that says phase 1, never came out with phase 2, until there was a law that forced them to. But here's the thing we also find out is in Epstein's plea deal, it said no other people would be indicted or prosecuted relating to his trafficking ring, okay? It says that, and that was part of his plea deal. And then they indict Ghislaine Maxwell. So she's been indicted, but then there's all these other silent things that apparently 42 silent plea deals have happened that we'll never know the ins and outs of. And on top of that, you can't traffic hundreds of kids to no one. So who did they traffic them to?
Carl, the whole thing is wildly problematic. There's no political winners here. But the big thing that came out to me as I was examining these articles and examining everything that was coming out as a result of this Epstein file dump is that the left told us for months that Donald Trump was explicitly complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's actions. And the allegations that they laid out against him were slanderous. They were defamatory. They basically said that he was in complete cahoots with them. And then as we start to uncover some of the documents, and you've pointed this out very well, we still don't have all of the information. Not nearly as much has come out about it as we should have by now. And frankly, the stuff that has come out should have come out far sooner. But they are their own best conspiracy theorists. The left, we don't give them enough credit for coming up with the conspiracy theories about Donald Trump and Republicans that they themselves appear to be doing in many instances.
Yeah.
So yes, the whole thing was a mess. It was a complete blunder on multiple fronts. But in fact, we now know that all of the hocus pocus that the Democrats were telling us about related to Republicans and President Trump was apparently a complete farce.
Yeah, and I know. Look, if they had any ounce of anything on Donald Trump, they would have released it in 2016. But they didn't do that. J-Town, Luke Ball, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, a bombshell lawsuit exposes gender-affirming care doctors in Westchester, New York for performing a double mastectomy on a 16-year-old with limited psychiatric care back in 2019. Culture Class coming up next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
The first day back from maternity leave is so weird. We get it. Find a caregiver who does too. When it's not you, it's care.com.
Youth mental health is a complex challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. We must strengthen after-school programs. We must make digital literacy tools available in our schools. We must work with mental health professionals to support children. And we must empower mentors, educators, and parents to keep kids happy. Learn more about our commitment to finding lasting solutions at empowerourfuturecoalition.com/solutions. Paid for by the Coalition to Empower Our Future.
Set sail toward fast asthma relief with Brethora.
$300 for a refill?
Don't pay that. Use Single Care. Look up your prescription, show the coupon to the pharmacist, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Oh, while libs want gun manufacturers to be held liable for shootings, they're outraged over the following story. A young detransitioned woman now has won $2 million in a lawsuit against two medical professionals who were found liable for malpractice in connection with their sex change procedure in Westchester County, New York, right near where I live. 22-year-old Fox Varian sued both her psychologist and the plastic surgeon who carried out a double mastectomy on her back in 2019 when she was only 16, but thought she might be identifying as a transgender girl. Now, this is a huge victory, as Varian is considered to be the first known detransitioner to successfully go to trial and win a settlement. But while this is like maybe groundbreaking, genital mutilation providers for kids have been reprimanded for years with little to no repercussions. Back in October, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit against adolescent medicine physician May Lau for prescribing testosterone to young patients to transition. She surrendered her medical license in Texas and then was announced, oh, look, she's moving her practice to Oregon the next day, where she just got her medical license reactivated. Mary Margaret Olohan, the White House correspondent for the Daily Wire. Mary, this is your beat, okay? I saw this lawsuit and I was like, well, at least we won one.
Absolutely, Carl. Look, there are so many young people all over the United States, but specifically young women who were lied to. They were told that they could do the impossible, to go from being a girl to a boy. And their doctors knew that this wasn't true, but they also knew they could make a lot of money and that these kids were young and susceptible and troubled and already had mental health issues, unstable families. And so they took advantage of these kids, and now we are seeing in real time how they're going to be punished for these crimes. And President Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is supporting these children. He's not going to allow this to happen anymore. And frankly, Carl, it's high time. This has been such a gross violation of our children's trust. It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And I know so many young people are going to be saved by this type of punishment for the doctors who are doing this. Yeah, well, they say that it's well over half of these people who transition before the age of 18 want to transition back. But once you've stopped puberty or reversed this or chopped off that, I mean, the damage is done. Right. Well, Carl, I quite literally wrote the book on this. What they're told as a young person is the reason you don't fit in, or the reason that you don't have a lot of friends, or the reason that you feel uncomfortable at school is because you were born in the wrong body. It's this activist lie that these kids are sold. And the media doesn't want you to know about these detransitioners, these young people who realize that this is not working out for them, that they're not happier trying to be someone that they're not. And so legacy media for years has tried to say that there's only a few detransitioners. Well, that's a lie. And lawsuits like this are showing that to be true. There are many young people like this. They need our help. Their parents need our help. Their parents are often portrayed in a really negative light, but I'd argue that a lot of these parents are victims as well. They're lied to by doctors. They're lied to by the medical system. They love their kids. They just don't know what they're doing. Right. Well, in this case specifically, the psychologist and the doctor both told the parents that said, hey, your child will probably commit suicide if you don't transition. And then we find out that, you know, transitioned or not transitioned or detransitioned, it's all about a 50% suicide rate. Anyway, I got to get to this, because obviously we talked about this on Friday when it broke, but New York Democrats are big mad over the fact that our ads are in taxi cabs in New York City. And now they're, you know, the Manhattan Borough President, Brad Hollyman-Sigel, who hyphenates his last name, which tells you everything you need to know, has launched a campaign to try to get us banned from taxi cabs. Bro, if that's what you got going in life, I'm like, word. Well, look, they're not that interested in showing differing viewpoints, right? I mean, in many lobbies in New York City or blue cities around the country, they're not showing Newsmax. They're showing CNN and MSNBC, and they're not really interested in people knowing that these other options exist. So I think you must be doing something right. I know. I hope so. I got to get to this. Philly Sheriff Office. This is so bizarre. Just play some of this, please. Okay, so as this just circus plays on, this is their police recruiting ad,
with a, I don't even know what is going on here.
Well, I think this is just a response to the woke leftist idea that police shouldn't be what it is meant to be, a force to protect our country, a force to protect our cities and our people. They're supposed to be ready, they're supposed to be serious, and they're supposed to take our laws very seriously. And unfortunately, that's not what a lot of these blue cities want them to be doing. They would rather that they kind of go into these woke lines of thinking and talking, and so that's what you get when you put people in boxes like this, because that's just it's not feasible.
I think every police recruitment ad should just play reruns of cops bodying people in like Louisiana or wherever it is. Mary, we appreciate it very much. All right, coming up, more corruption out of California. How much fraud has Dr. Oz exposed in Los Angeles just alone? You are not going to want to miss this next.
A new president is sworn in. America's greatness is restored. Millions of Americans are tuning in to Newsmax. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific. Watch Newsmax or download our free app on your TV or phone today.
With less burning, itching, and pain from moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, imagine being a million miles away. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. Most people saw 100% clear skin that stayed clear, even at 5 years. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
As a physician, I fielded many patient questions about ways to prevent cancer. And while we learn more every day, we're still not there. But it was my own cancer diagnosis that motivated my total immersion into the research with one goal: to keep my cancer from ever returning. The human body is incredibly capable of protecting us, but we have to do our part. We have to give it the ammunition it needs to fight. My studies led me to create SHIELD, the first of its kind protective nutraceutical system. SHIELD combines 10 high-dose natural ingredients to super boost your immune system and support cellular detoxification. SHIELD is just that, a shield of rare and powerful nutrients to support cellular health and to help fend off disease, so you can live life to the fullest.
Save $25 with promo code LIVE at victoryagainstcancer.com.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Home inspectors, contractors, roofers, all kinds of pros recommend Leaf Filter. Why? Topped by stainless steel micro mesh, Leaf Filter is engineered for protection. In testing, Leaf Filter handles double the water volume of common hood-style guards without overflow. Our product design is driven by relentless innovation, ensuring optimal performance even in the toughest storms. And we back it all with a lifetime clog-free guarantee.
Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Trevor.
We really need to keep Zicam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zicam.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, I've been waiting to...
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand.
The American healthcare industry is an incestuous cycle where huge companies control literally everything. If you don't believe me, Congressman Jason Smith recently laid this out with health insurance CEOs in live time. Roll this.
The first question is, which of your companies own or control a health insurance division? Raise your hand.
Okay, so all but one says they own a health insurance division. Okay, but keep watching.
Please keep your hand up if you also employ healthcare providers or own clinics, specialty pharmacies, or any other kind of medical practice or pharmacy.
Right, so they provide you with insurance and also run the providers who offer you care that's paid for by the insurance. Got it. They provide the health insurance that pays the healthcare providers that they also own and?
Please keep your hand up if you also own or control a pharmacy benefit manager.
And the pharmacy benefit managers that wheel and deal and determine the price of medications prescribed by the doctors they also own that may or may not be covered by the insurance companies they also own, and decide what costs they are to you.
And please keep your hand up if you lead a publicly traded company at which you have a legal responsibility to maximize shareholder value.
And there it is, because they are the heads of publicly traded companies with an obligation to maximize shareholder value. They also get huge swaths of stock, too. They control it all, from the bottom to the top, in the incestuous cycle that makes trillions of dollars off the American people. 17 trillion just on statin drugs since it was invented, okay? One drug, 17 trillion, through premiums and co-pays and our tax dollar subsidies. Michael Savage, host of Savage Nation. Sir, it's disgusting.
Well, I've been warning about interlocking corporate directorships since the 1990s. This is a classic example of what I was talking about. When you have this interlocking corporate structure where it's like owning a series of restaurants, and you own the food supply, you own the waiters, you own the busboys, etc. I mean, you know the food quality is going to be cut to the bone. I know it from the inside out because I live in California. I'm a member of managed care. Every time I go to see a doctor, the number of MDs has been diminishing over the years. There are more PAs from foreign countries. If you can find a doctor who speaks English, you're way ahead of the curve here in California.
Wow.
And everyone is complaining in the system. You've got good people, doesn't mean they're bad, but they're not MDs, okay? And I insist on a medical doctor treating me for a medical condition, not a nurse from the Philippines, for example, who just came over. And I'm not picking on the Philippines, but we have a lot of those. So the medical care in California is going down and down and down, and I've experienced it personally from the top to the bottom. Having said that, there are some great doctors there, and I've known some great doctors who have quit the system in their 50s. They don't want to work anymore in these systems because they can't spend enough time with patients. They can't spend any time with quality care. They can't prescribe medications that they want to prescribe. It's all done by some policy wonk in a corporate headquarters somewhere in God knows where America.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And you just said you were from California. Dr. Oz was out there, and he actually blew the lid off of some more of this fraud, which is part of the reason why stuff is so expensive regarding home health care. Roll this.
In 2024 alone, spending for home health care in California increased by more than 21%, representing the largest growth rate for any major health category nationwide. The number of home health agencies in California almost doubled between 2019 and 24. LA County alone is accounting for $1.4 billion, representing almost 9% of total fee-for-service home health spending for the entire country.
Almost 1/10 of the home care is billed out of Los Angeles County for the whole country?
No, but remember, Carl, you're missing the point. Diversity is our strength.
Oh, my bad.
You think, it's okay. We have the highest state taxes in the United States of America, but it goes to a good cause. It's to pay the thieves who run these home health agencies and run the hospitals.
And the high-speed railroad.
And now we have to tax the rich in order to pay the SEIU. People don't know who the head of the snake is here. It's the ACLU and the SEIU that run this entire state. They don't know what the SEIU is. It's the Service Employees International Union. It started out many years ago. I remember saying, who are they? And it used to be La Raza. Then they morphed into the SEIU. And here we are. They're running the state. They control the Democrat Party.
No doubt.
And we've gone from being the golden state to the beholden state because of the SEIU, in my opinion, and the ACLU.
Sir, this is actually just breaking. They just got in my ear and told me this. According to the New York Times, the Clintons will actually testify to the Oversight Committee. I got about 20 seconds for you here, sir.
Well, I wonder if she's going to bring the purple dress or deny that she ever saw it. I mean, I'm not into like looking at the Clintons right now. You know that they're skilled testifiers, to use a What are they going to actually get out of them? I don't get it. Why are they? It's a distraction, Carl, from what's really going on in the world, I think. I mean, I would say, yeah, we know who they are, but really, at this point in American history, with what else is going on, like what you just pointed out, what's going on in Minneapolis, we care about Hillary Clinton's outfit?
I think we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. I got to leave it right there. Dr. Michael Savage, we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
All right, coming up, another weekend full of violent leftist insurrections in American cities, believe it or not. And the president has had enough, thank God. Next.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Super Beets works. I swear by it, and I know you're going to love it too.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
In 2024, the IRS flagged nearly 2 million tax returns for possible identity fraud.
Someone stole my Social Security number and filed a tax return in my name, and I'm a CPA.
Your tax forms have all the personal information needed to commit identity theft, and you're not the only one with a copy, which makes you vulnerable. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats others could miss. And if your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. Guaranteed. Enroll now.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year your loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories at Ancestry.
Where's my mother gonna... Oh, no. Is this the episode with the breakup?
Reba, we can't agree on the house.
Y'all need Realtor.com. With over 500,000 new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it. Realtor.com.
Oh, neat. A riot was declared in Eugene, Oregon Friday night after violent leftists broke into a federal building, and a day after agitators later and federal agents were also forced to use tear gas and secure the scene. In a lengthy Truth Social post from the weekend, President Trump ripped blue cities, saying that under no circumstances would his administration help these cities deal with protests unless they ask nicely for help. Warning these cities, saying that ICE, Border Patrol, or if necessary, our military will be extremely powerful and tough in the protection of our federal property. Closing by saying, I was elected on a policy of border control. National security and law and order, and that's what America wants, and that's what America is getting. Oregon's Lib governor, though, Tina Kotek, Oregon won't be intimidated after their insurrection storming a federal building. Okay, got it. Charles Marino, Newsmax contributor, and John Jordan, attorney. All right. I look at this, John, and I'm like, this is so simple. But I don't think the libs and Democrats in their local precincts even care if they burn down their own cities.
No, they don't. Oddly enough, Portland, what I'm hearing is that they're actually starting to clean it up little by little, but they still have to do this performative art, performative theater that they have to do to look like they're standing up to Trump. So ingrained is Trump derangement syndrome in white coastal liberals. And I live not too far from Oregon. But that's really what it is. At the same time, they know their own economy starting to come apart. And so they started to clean up Portland a little by little. They won't call it tough on crime, but they know economically they have to because there is demand for that, as long as they can still pay homage and offer sacrifices to the Trump derangement syndrome folks.
Yeah. Charles, it just seems, though, like, and obviously leftist judges have basically attacked Trump wherever they can. But this one judge, Fred Byrie, took a whole new level over the weekend. OK, you remember that 5-year-old that they they said, oh, I separated from his parents. Well, it turns out that didn't happen. All right. The ICE ordered that family back together. Now, this is the guy who split and abandoned his 5-year-old in the cold. His mother didn't want custody, and this judge orders them back together, posting a picture and saying how sweet and nice it is and all this. It's like, what are we even doing?
Yeah, let's remember that it was the Biden administration that let about 450,000 unaccompanied minors go missing, not on the way to the United States, but within the interior of the United States, between the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services. Look, there's no way you can be a sanctuary city, as Governor Walz attempted to do last week during one of his many press conferences, just lying to the American people, and say you're for public safety and then implement policies that undermine, guess what, public safety. So you can't have it all ways as a sanctuary city. Yeah. And that's what they're trying to do here right now. And their policies endanger everybody. So if anybody's looking out for kids, it's the Trump administration, who, by the way, so far has reunited almost 150,000 missing kids within the interior of the United States.
That's crazy. A lot of these were registered to like shipping containers and parking lots too when they under the Biden administration. John, here's a legal question for you. The St. Paul's United Methodist Church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, of all places, hosted a training for people, showing them, what they were saying are their rights, but also showing how to physically intervene with ICE protesters and how to surround the illegal immigrant that's their target. Should they lose their nonprofit status?
Yeah, so there's two things to understand here. First of all, the Internal Revenue Code dealing with 501c3, obviously, and that's intended for charitable or social welfare organizations. Specifically prohibited, Carl, is the engaging in political activity, supporting or opposing causes, ballot propositions, candidates, and the like. And so that's specifically prohibited and can cause you to lose your 501c3 or charitable status. But they got a bigger problem here. You could argue that this is racketeering. This is a RICO case, that they are organizing as an organization to obstruct federal obstruct the federal government. It's insurrective in its nature, but to obstruct federal agents and federal the DOJ in the beautiful enforcement of its duties. There's criminal liability potentially for the organization and its officers.
Charles, last 15 seconds to you on this.
How much longer do the American taxpayers need to pay for this stupidity? We see it with sanctuary cities rewarding public policy that undermines our national security. We see it with public school districts demanding that their students go out and walk out of school and protest. How much more do we have to take?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Charles, John, appreciate it. All right, before we go, men pretending to be women isn't the only thing libs love to cosplay, as they also love to disrespect our service. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time. This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Novella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
If you can go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Actually, I'm going to Thailand in a couple months.
Great, but do you have your passport and pre-check ready?
I've been putting that off. I heard it's such a pain.
You clearly haven't heard of GovPlus.com.
Plus, what's that?
They have completely automated the process of applying for your passport, pre-check, birth certificate, and much more. Here, let me show you how it works. So when you go to GovPlus.com, you fill out their secure online form, which only takes minutes. That then applies your information to all your other documents on GovPlus. You can track your documents here, too. Applications are all online.
Thank you for my passport and pre-check for my trip.
Safe travels.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Liberals are actually the worst, and they wanted in Minnesota. They wanted to cosplay and wannabe World War II soldiers and reenact the Iwo Jima flag-raising scene on the top of Mount Suribachi. Look at how stupid this looks. Okay, this is unbelievable. Like, U.S. Marines and the U.S. military built a functioning airport in 24 hours on Iwo Jima after we took over that whole thing. And these fools are out there in flannel shirts pretending to plant this, Minnesota Somali flag, Rob.
I saw that. It's so, first of all, how embarrassing that their flag looks like that now. Just tremendous pandering. And then who are these cucks? I mean, where do they find these people to do something like this? How genuinely embarrassing.
Yeah. Well.
You already got me riled up and the show hadn't even started yet.
Great.
Carl.
See ya.
Good to see you. Thanks so much.